Hello and welcome to Scary Movie and a Sandwich, your cozy, easy listening, easy watching horror and food podcast, all about sandwiches, all about scary movies. I'm your host, Artem. Today's a very exciting treat. We're doing our first ever AMA, stands for Ask Me Anything. And we've got with us our boots on the ground, hardcore journalist reporter, our preeminent diva of all synopsises. This is the one and only Antonia Lassar, folks. Let's welcome.
Hey sandwiches, what's up? It's me, professional hater, Antonia Lassar. Happy to be here to bring criticism and judgment to this podcast, like always.
But also profound perspective.
Also,
don't sell yourself short. You don't just hate.
You
don't also
just
interrogate and uplift and tear down.
Yeah. I think that today's the podcast should be called Scary Movie and a Sandwich and a Booski.
Oh, Scary Movie and a Sandwich and a Booski.
Cute, right?
Smooch. Nice. Very nice.
We're cute. Okay. Give me one of these.
Okay. Oh, wiggy, Jags. Nice. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
If you know. Looking at you, Mr. Hanks.
Thank you for listening.
All right, let's move on. Thank you so much for all of the listeners and all of the viewers. Thank you so much for sending in a whole bunch of questions. We have a ton to get through here. In the interest of time, we had to consolidate the questions. So if you don't hear your questions asked, don't worry. We still love you. We still think you're a perfect human being. Isn't that right? Tell them you love them.
I think you're perfect.
That's right.
Even though
under no duress,
you make terrible choices very often.
All right. Okay.
Watching these stupid movies.
But if you don't hear your question asked, don't worry. We still have it. We will ask them again in the future. We'll see if you guys dig these AMAs. It was really fun thinking about, the answers to some of these hard-hitting, profound questions. In fact, I think we're going to cover enough questions here today that we're going to split this into 2 episodes. So you're going to get so much scary, so much movies, so much sandwich, so much questions, so much booski. Ready?
You're welcome.
Okay, so Antonia is going to lead the questions and sort of the interviewing here. Let's get into it.
Okay, here we go. I also thought of one other thing, which is that this is an AMA.
Yes.
An Antonia Maxon Artem.
Antonia Maxon.
Damn.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Damn, everybody.
Very good.
She's here.
Whoa.
Okay. I'm
Strong
in charge
start.
of asking the questions. Artem's in charge of answering the questions. Moisha. Antonia Moisha Artem.
Our dog,
AMA.
Moisha.
Moisha's in charge of licking his paws.
That's right. Moisha's actually not here today. Moisha is with one of our listeners whose question we're going to get to.
We will. Okay.
So.
Okay, to start off.
Hit me.
Okay, you have a really hard-hitting question from our neighbor Caroline.
Oh, love her.
Who is incredible neighbor,
the best.
Future best therapist on earth, and full-time pop culture professor, PhD, pop culture savant. Okay.
Yes.
Caroline asks, what is scarier? The best horror movie ever made? Or having to eat a bad sandwich? And she clarifies, in this scenario, you have to be polite and you have to eat the entire sandwich because the sandwich maker is watching you eat it and hoping that you like it.
Yeah. Of course, I think without a doubt, it's scarier to eat a bad sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like I have a faint memory of like a friend of ours got really into making bread. Not Greg Berman makes fantastic focaccia bread and sourdough bread, but that's
definitely not. We're
is
not
not
naming
about you, Greg.
because it's definitely not.
This is a
you.
different person who I think during the pandemic people got really into sourdough bread.
Beg Gurman, I think.
Beg Gurman. Who?
Sorry, Greg.
Who lives in Los Angeles. This is not Greg's bread. Okay, anyways, I think it was like during the pandemic, one of our friends back in Brooklyn got really into sourdough bread. Everybody got into sourdough bread. And then they were like, oh, I made this like vegan bacon. It's like nothing against vegan bacon, but it's like I think if you make it yourself, it's like kind of complicated. And then their sourdough bread was like very sour. Like it was like sour and like a little moist. Like it almost felt like it was like
Was
unfinished.
this?
Let's not name names.
Okay, we're not gonna name names. We're not gonna name names.
But it was just like they had put so much work into it. Obviously, the sourdough bread part, the making your own like tofu bacon. Then like I think it was just like all the other stuff that was just like a little off. Like the lettuce was just like had probably been in their fridge for a little over a week. Like but like the thing is like we hadn't seen each other in a long time. It was everybody's locked down on the pandemic, and then they were like, oh, got into this, and I started making these sandwiches. I have one every day, and I'm like, amazing. Let me try it. And then they like try, and I'm like, why are these flavors I've never had in a sandwich before? Like what's going on? Like everything is too sour, a little too wet, like a little you know.
Wetness in a sandwich is a killer that people do not talk about enough.
But you know what I mean? Like this person put so much work into it, and I'm not gonna not eat it. I'm also not gonna not compliment them and be like, wow, you made this?
I'm also trying to figure out who this is.
Let's just
not
move on.
Let's not. We're not gonna talk to anyone.
It was a dark time. People.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, here's my next question for you. Also from Caroline. What's your favorite horror movie that you watched in 2025?
2025 was a good year for horror movies. I feel like I'm still catching up on a bunch of them. I think my two faves were 28 Years Later. The latest from Danny Boyle, I'm a big fan of. Alex Carl, I'm a big fan of. Just super interesting. Imagining a society that got cut off from technology, from advancement, from just like a society that was isolated for 28 years, like what's happening in that society. That was really interesting. Just filmed in like a kind of an unexpected way. There's a lot of like really neat ideas. Also, from listening to some interviews about it, like it's a particularly British film, so there's like a lot of stuff that you just like you don't.
I love that.
You love that.
It's British,
that. In it? So sorry to our UK audience, but it was like one of those things where it felt like, oh, I could watch this several times and keep finding new things. And it had some proper scares, and it had some very well endowed monsters. Penises.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much, but penises.
Okay, because you like this film enough that you told me the whole plot.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But you didn't tell me anything about penises.
You know, I wanted that to be a joy for you to...
When I was going to watch it?
So 28 Years Later, highly recommend. And then I think my favorite time going to the movies, period, this year was watching Weapons. And I ended up seeing it a couple of times. And it's just like, I think it was like one of these things that I like really love about the horror genre is like, you can tell that everybody in the audience is thinking and looking and focusing on the same exact thing. And so people would all gasp at the same time, and people would look at each other and cringe at the same time. People would be surprised by things sometimes, and people would crack like it was just so well connected to the audience experience. There's some great laughs, and it's a really funny, really dark, extremely exciting film. It's great performance. So it's just like such a blast watching the movies. So if you can, watch Weapons with like a group of friends, you know. Well, however you watch it, no judgment. I'm just saying, I think with a group of people,
find some friends. Step one.
Step one, find some friends.
Find some friends.
Find some sandwiches. And so those are my two faves of the year.
Okay, those are good faves. Question number 3. This is final question from Caroline. Best question of the whole AMA, I would say.
Thank you, Caroline.
Would you say working with your spouse is more like eating a juicy sandwich or like a thrilling horror movie that keeps you guessing?
Come on.
Discuss.
Come on. You know the answer.
I know the answer.
Let me get a bite out of that sweet, juicy booski. Yeah, I fucking love working with you. I love doing anything with you.
Wiggy, 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 wiggy. Jags.
Yeah, you're like this sweet, delicious sandwich.
What kind of sandwich?
Juicy.
Tell me more.
Messy.
Tell me more.
Heart healthy. Good for the heart.
Yeah.
Substantial. Yeah. Meaty. You know what? You might put those like freak sandwiches. You know, like what kind of sandwich you put an egg on, but you're like you don't have to put an egg on it.
Would you call that a freak sandwich?
Well, you know, not judging. I'm just sort of saying it's like when people start throwing eggs on top of a sandwich and it's not a breakfast sandwich exclusively, you're like, whoa.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you like?
You're like, whoa. Whoa. Why will what too soon? So sorry. Okay.
Okay, when people throw an egg inside of the 2 slices of bread versus throwing it on top of the 2 slices of bread.
That's psychopathic. Why would you put them on
Right?
top?
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane. Yeah. I mean, it's still a sandwich, but it's immediately a fork and knife situation.
Immediately.
If you didn't sign up for that, you're like, I'm gonna eat this driving on the 101 with.
I mean, not to mention
I have to be able to eat a sandwich.
A runny egg on the 101.
I eat so much food in the car. Yeah. I mean, on top of the food, yeah, I guess you can.
Am I wrong? Listeners, write in. Isn't a croque monsieur or a croque madame, one of them is when you put an egg on top?
Yeah, right in. Yeah, we want to know.
Right in.
What the fucking crazy
Right in.
sandwich.
Okay, I've got more questions
Thank you, Caroline.
for you. Caroline, incredible questions. Now, we have probably the best questions we'll ever get, coming from the greatest fan that you will ever have.
Oh my God.
His name is Simon. He's perfect.
Incredible.
Envision someone who just is radiating perfection from every angle.
Perfection, positivity, enthusiasm, cheeky.
He's a little cheeky.
He's a bit cheeky in it.
And he happens to be related to you because he's your nephew.
What? Bow, 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 bow.
And he's in the top 0.001% of listeners of the show.
Honestly, this is the sweetest thing that anybody. Wow. Okay. No, you know, it's up there.
It's the best thing that's ever happened to you.
One of the best things. He just sent it. It's like, I don't know, whenever Spotify Raps are doing their Spotify Raps, he just sent me like, just so you know. Like, just so you know where we stand.
Keeping your show afloat.
It's like your number one show this year was a scary movie and a sandwich. And it was like, you're in the 0.001% of top listeners. I'm like, no one could get close to this guy. And how many times he's listened to the episodes? How many times he's like texting me being like, love the latest episode. Oh, I love your guests. Just like the best. Simon, thank you.
We love you so much. And we also love all your brothers. They're equally perfect.
Wait, quick segue. Simon is perfect. Who's the most perfect fan of your show? Antonia's show is called Yenta.
Gossip podcast.
With your co-host, the comedian Rachela.
Yep.
Who's your number one fan?
My little sister, Simone. Did you see the connection?
Simon Simone. Sovereignty. The sovereignty of Sims.
What we're saying is our families really, really support us.
They're so supportive.
They support our humble little dreams.
So sweet. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to some of Simon's great questions.
Youngins in our lives are so kind.
I know.
We love you.
Okay,
so, Simon, hit me.
Simon has got some hard-hitting questions. Number one, are there any horror movies that you find vastly overrated?
Thank you for this question.
I love some shit talking.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be really honest. I do get a bit fatigued with franchises. And there's some franchises I'm into. And there's some franchises that really don't do it for me. I think the Halloween franchise is pretty overrated. I think like separately the films are not always that exciting. They kind of fall apart. I think the franchise itself sometimes becomes a bit like you would say like, oh, the sum of its parts, and it's like the sum of its parts is like not that compelling. I know that people will say like foundational film, like so important to the horror genre, and like I agree, but I also feel like that conversation comes up a lot, being like, well, don't you realize what this like piece of art has done for, you know, culture or whatever? And I'm like, I think when Halloween was made, and I feel like based on the interviews that I read, like it wasn't like John Carpenter was like, this is going to be the most profound film that people are going to analyze for the next 50 years. Like he was just like, yeah, we're making a fucking cool, like, you know, stabby serial killer film and trying some stuff we've never tried before. And then so it's like, great. And that in itself, fantastic. But I don't think he set out to be like, and this is the movie that needs to be franchised for the next fucking decades. You know, so I think people get a little too bogged down with being like, don't you see how influential it is? I'm like, it's definitely very influential, and it's influenced a lot of amazing other movies. unfortunately, a lot of those movies that it influenced that are not so amazing are movies within its own franchise. Like the Halloween movies, I think, are the least interesting movies that were inspired by Halloween.
That's funny. Wait, how do you feel about Halloween #1?
It's great.
Okay, so
great.
you like Halloween #1.
For sure. Super
it's
fun.
The ensuing slop.
Yeah. And I'd be obviously being harsher on it than whatever. I think the franchise can take it.
Burn her to the ground.
But I also think that Halloween itself is a really fun movie and a really interesting film about what it's about. But even when it was made, it wasn't as scary as some of the other stuff that was happening around that time. Like there were movies that were vastly scarier. So I think even when it was being made, they were like, oh, the scariest movie ever made. I feel like even then John Carpenter would have been like, no, like I Spit on Your Grave or like Last House on the Left would have easily been way more fucked up, Peeping Tom, way more fucked up movies than Halloween. And I feel like John Carpenter would have like not argued about them, like, no, for sure. Anyways, so yes, Halloween, original, great. I think the franchise itself is a little, so anyway, so I think those are the movies that feel like they're a little overrated. I will say the same thing for the Friday franchise is definitely overrated. I know we did Last Summer franchise is not great, but it's also not so long. I'm not caught up on all the Scream movies, but I love the first 3. I will say that I have a soft spot for all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. They get really wacky. I'll just end on this. I think, though, Nightmare on Elm Street from its outset was doing something different than these other franchises. And I think there's a lot of franchises that happened in the 80s that were also like really weird. Nightmare on Elm Street was great because it just right off the bat you were never like, wow, like what makes Jason Voorhees tick? What's wrong with this killer? What makes Michael Myers tick? What's wrong with this killer? Nightmare on Elm Street, like you were immediately in the world of fantasy. Like the lead character is being pursued by a supernatural, phantasmal force that only attacks her when she's asleep. So like immediately we're already in the world of like, oh, this is going to be more abstract. It's going to be more surreal. And so even as the franchise gets really crazy, like at some point there's a kill that happens where somebody has a bad dream where they're at a dinner table and their entire family is forcing them to eat a lot.
Whoa. And
so there's all these like practical effects. There's no CGI. If like somebody's like face turning green and their whole entire mouth stretching out, their entire body like becoming like bigger and bigger until they like blow up, and it's just it's really funny and it's really fun and weird. But at no point is it like taking itself so seriously as to like make you kind of wonder like, is this the scariest movie ever made? I think right off the outset, it was like we're doing something different. We're doing something strange and fantastical, and so I have a soft spot for that.
Okay, I like that answer. And like in fairness, I can't think of any film franchises over 3 iterations that I like.
I mean, there's dozens of Halloweens. There's dozens of Friday the 13th. There's so many of them.
So it's like,
it's crazy.
Wrap it up.
Wrapping up.
Okay, here's another question.
I do wish they made more Gremlins movies. I just want to say that.
Say it.
It's not enough Gremlins.
Speak your truth. Okay, here's another question. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Okay, what's your favorite example of a horror movie speaking directly to the time period that it was created in? Like representing a specific societal fear from that time?
I think horror movies are always like speaking to a societal fear. They're
in our society.
In our society, they're really great and like hard hitting. I think horror movies, when they're at their best, is when they're speaking to something that's directly scary, and that's why they're usually the scariest, because they're connecting to something that's like real. I think. Shout out Wes Craven again. I think Scream is like a pretty profound film. I think like it was just talking to, I think, a little bit of a pop culture moment of franchises, too many scary movies out there. Like basically so much so that we as like a society kind of embraced the like, we're looking forward to the kill, we're looking forward to the next death. We know the rules, we know the beats. Like so much of that was like talking about like an almost like an oversaturation of violence and it being meaningless. Which maybe is not necessarily speaking to a huge fear, but around that time when it came out, which was like midnight, I think 96 or 97, this is when people started tuning into like mass school shootings and like homeland terrorism, like
tuning in.
Yeah. No, I mean like it just became. I mean obviously it had been happening,
yeah.
But that's like I think I think a year after this or something, Columbine happens. And a few years prior to that, I think that it was the Timothy McVeigh Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
And that's like a disaffected young man being like, I forget, he's not a teenager. I forget how old that fucker was. But the Columbine shooters, disaffected young men. The two killers in Scream are disaffected young men, and it's like, why are they doing this? And they're doing it just because they can, just because they want to feel something, they want to experience something. Like there's like an interesting existential kind of scary question at the root of it, which is like, why would we want to see this happen? Why would we want to exact this violence? And it seems to be like the question kind of looms there in a way that's like, as soon as you want to interrogate it, you're almost accepting the premise that people might want to do violence. And when you don't interrogate it, it's like as if you're saying, la la la, this isn't happening, which is sadly, I think, still how a lot of people approach school shootings even today, where they're just like, that's just a random incident of violence. That's, well, that person was crazy. Well, anyway, so Scream is one that I think, and it ended up being, I think, a lot in the conversation of like violence in media and it having a bad influence in young people.
Okay, I have a follow-up question, which is that, like, I hear in Simon's question sort of an implied question that's like, is there a horror movie you can think of that was so scary for its time, but does not really scare us today because it was speaking to like a totally different social moment? Or is a great horror movie from very long ago, just by nature of tapping into like fear, the nature of fear, do they generally hold up?
Well, I mean, I had a really long, I've been having an on and off debate with a former guest of the show, Mo Poplar, about Frankenstein, and Mo loves Frankenstein, and kind of my like same thing is like what I said about Halloween was like, when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, she was trying to scare a couple of people in her life, but I don't think she was like, let's have somebody, people should debate my book for the next 200 years. And only by tapping into the context and the history of that work do you really go back to a time and realize like, oh, here's how this is. But like, it's so far removed from our time that we now have to kind of reinvent to be able to tap back into it. So to me, the book doesn't feel scary anymore, and then the movies that come out of it that are trying to do the book justice don't feel scary anymore. I think they only like really connect. Like the latest Frankenstein is a beautiful film that I found not particularly emotionally impactful, because I was I was kind of wanted it to speak to the present moment, which is like, I think there's a huge conversation going on right now about like loss of agency and loss of identity. Like, I think it wasn't tapping into what I think right now are questions and fears that people are really struggling with that have to do with technology, right? In Frankenstein, someone uses technology to create an artificial life form. Right now, a huge conversation is artificial intelligence. So I wanted the film to tap more into the ideas of like loss of agency, loss of identity. Like, am I the monster? Is this the monster? Am I the creator? Am I the person in charge of my own destiny, or is somebody else in charge of my own destiny? What's my purpose? Why was I put in here? Yeah, I just found like those things were slightly given a more or less like graceful pass rather than like a hard-hitting pass, because I think there was like this attempt to really try to do the book justice, and it's just a big book.
And also, not really a scary book.
It's that's the thing, is I think, again, it's like, for context, like for its time, yeah, I guess it was like really hit people in a particular way.
Or did it? Like, is back when Frankenstein was written, was the standard of what was reasonable to scare people with completely different? Like,
that's a really good point.
You know what I mean? Like, would there simply never have been a book published at that time that was as scary as modern horror is?
Totally, yeah. And like, I was saying this to Mo, is like, Mary Shelley did not have the benefit of having 200 years of people analyzing her work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Do you know what I think? You bring up a good point. Like, I think at a certain point, you have to go back to the time period to really get the context, and you realize you're so separated from the time period that you really are gleaming like general ideas, even when you get full context. But like, it's almost like it's a moot point, because at this point we're sort of trying to figure out how do we make the context relevant right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You kind of have to change it. I will say, I think a movie that was really hard hitting for its time that I think is still really cool today, but for a different reason, is a movie called The Fly.
Oh,
Yeah,
yep.
the famous Cronenberg film, The Fly, with Jeffy Goldblum and Gene Davis, which
You've also told me the plot of that.
That's right. That's right. And we have an episode about that coming out in 2026. When it was released, it was just at the outset of the AIDS epidemic. And although the movie doesn't directly say this is what this is about, there's a lot of conversation and a lot of discussion that have happened since that were like, the way Jeff Goldblum is described as transforming into the Fly. Spoiler alert: it's the Fly. Jeff Goldblum turns into a fly. But the way that he's depicted, the way a lot of it is like it's similar to the sort of pustules that you get, or the kind of lesions that you get, the kind of scarring that you get, and then the way he becomes more and more feeble is similar to. So some of like the latter states of AIDS, of being infected by AIDS. So at the time, I think there were populations that were watching that movie and feeling like, oh, we're seeing, this erasure, like kind of depicted. The physical like experience of it is so harsh and people don't want to see it. But I think nowadays when people watch it, I would imagine people probably are thinking more about the overreach of like, the tech billionaires and the tech bros who are trying to reinvent the world and don't realize how powerful their technology might be, and they don't realize what they're creating. Like,
that's a good example.
Nice.
I like that one a lot. We've got some other deep questions from Simon.
Okay, hit us.
Okay, this is probably the thesis statement of your show.
Here we
go.
So
why do you think we seek out horror as a genre when life is so terrifying already?
Yeah, it's a good question.
We in this question. Why do you think we seek it out?
Yes, the general we.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a good question. I mean, Buski, you hate horror movies. Yeah, you don't seek them out. You don't want them. But would you agree that life can be scary?
Yeah.
For sure, right? But obviously, I personally, this is complete for me personally. I think we've talked about this. I got this idea from you actually a while ago, where I feel like I'm neurodivergent. I've got ADHD. I have depressive tendencies. I have a hard time, and I get easily a hard time with data and getting overwhelmed with tasks. So this is like a long time ago. Like, look, write it down. You're like, I have a bad memory. I don't bother remembering things. I just write them down. I put them outside of myself. And then there's something about that of putting something outside of yourself, writing something down, that suddenly becomes compartmentalized, right? I don't have to bear the responsibility of carrying this thing. I have this other tool. I have this other thing that allows me to see it. And now that I can literally physically hold it, I can kind of deal with it. I acknowledge its existence.
I've got good advice, man.
You got great advice.
I know.
I think this is the way that I approach horror movies.
Yeah.
Is that I have a lot of anxieties and stresses and fears. Like there's so many things that scare the fuck out of me in society, in my personality, in my like fears about the future, about my there's a lot of just really personal emotional stressors that I have all the time. And I think horror movies allow me to release the responsibility of carrying those myself, and they allow me to like put them outside of myself for 90 minutes or 2 hours, however long the movie is, and I kind of have something that is sort of saying, I see you, I acknowledge you, yes, I also have this fear as well, let's process it together. And so that's what I feel like horror movies do for me. Is they allow me to like release the responsibility of having to keep it all to myself. And it's that thing that I kind of mentioned earlier with like watching Weapons and kind of being in the presence of all these other people who are like gasping the same thing. If I watch this horror movie and it's bringing up and it's helping me talk and bring up things that I'm afraid of, there's somebody else in the room with me who might be getting stressed out about the same things, and there's another person and blah blah, and suddenly I could be talking to a person who I would never interact with otherwise. We could be from different walks of life, but we're all scared by the same things that we're seeing in this film. We're all responding to the same thing. So we have something that's like a common denominator. And I think there's just this social element that you get to sort of process these things together. So I think it's why I seek out horror movies, is because I think there's community around them. Have
you ever heard somebody like talk about their crazy religion? And they're like, no, you don't even get it. Like Xenu saved my soul from the volcano pit. I was deep in the volcano pit, living every day blind to all the Thetans, and then Xenu came and rescued me, and the community is so great.
Yeah. And the community is
and
so
really,
great.
it's about community.
Yeah.
That's what it
and the
feels
potlucks
like.
are great. You gotta come to these potlucks.
That's what it feels like listening to you explain horror movies. I'm just like, I simply have no touch point.
I get what you're saying. It's a cult. It's a cult. Fine, we're a cult.
It's like you're speaking gibberish. I'm like,
oh, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. Yeah. And also, I think there's like the funny thing is, you watch horror movies and it's got these like terrifying things that are happening to somebody else, and your mind and your body, they don't know the difference. They're like, this is happening right now, and so you're kind of like grabbing onto your seat, and you're like, oh, for 2 hours, and at the end of 2 hours, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. I didn't get stabbed. I survived. I made it. And so there's like this catharsis that you're riding a wave of like, I survived, even though you were just sitting there watching the movie. And that's also very, I find that very therapeutic.
I'm so happy for
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, here's the last one from Simon.
Oh, Simon, crushing it.
Which is, are there any lines that you think horror shouldn't cross?
This is a controversial question just because it's like...
How many babies are we allowed to decapitate?
To decapitate in a film, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think there are no lines that horror movies can't cross. Uncrossable lines from 50 years ago are different than the uncrossable lines from today. And the uncrossable lines from 50 years ago have now been crossed many, many, many times. I think we as a society change all the time, the way we deal with controversial things. So yeah, that's like my hard take is like, I don't think there's any lines they can't cross. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, make your extremely rancid, fucked up, offensive film, and then own it, because then people are going to come after you and say, where the fuck did you make it? And if you don't have a great artistic reason, if there isn't a profound, deeply well, I think, investigated reason for why you did it, then yeah, your movie is not going to be seen for the artistic thing that it is. I think that's the tricky thing with any kind of art form. It's like, because a lot of that conversation is about, to me, is like about censorship, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I have the same answer for comedy when people ask me, like, is there anything you can't say on stage in comedy? And I'm like, no, you can say anything you want, but just so you know, if you don't make people laugh, then you've made bad comedy.
That's right. Yeah.
So
I mean,
so it's like with horror movies, it's like, if you can deliver something that your audience feels like was worth it,
yeah,
then
I agree.
Do what you need to do to deliver that.
Yeah.
But if your audience all hates it and says none of that was worth it, then there you go. You made a bad movie.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately about your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes for everything. If your audience is all saying like this horror movie is not racially provocative, it's just racist, well, there you go.
There you go.
Then you made a racist movie.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's
totally. A lot of horror movies have huge elements of shock value. If it's just shock value and it's other than that not entertaining, the kind of movie that's not even ultimately like provocative or line border crossing, it just has like a shocking moment.
Yeah.
But if it's not entertaining overall, if the story doesn't connect, like there's a lot of ways that a piece of art, making art's hard. There's a lot of ways that a piece of art can fail. And it's like, oh no, let's not cross any lines. And it's like, look, being offensive is like, I think the least of your worries. Like, make a good fucking story, make a really well made film.
Yeah.
But that's hard. So, yeah, there's an audience for everything. I mean, what can I say? People liked what they liked. There's people who enjoy listening and watching to stuff that made by people who I find really problematic and offensive. There's still an audience. So if you're problematic and offensive and you want to make films for a problematic and offensive audience, I can't stop you.
It's fair.
Simon, good questions.
Good question, Simon.
Whew, profound. Holy shit.
So, okay, I really like this question. This comes from Todd. Okay, Todd is a hardcore nerd, excellent dad, and he plays Dungeons and Dragons with his 5-year-old.
Todd was telling me about this the other day, and I was just like, God damn, this is aspirational. Like, I want to play D&D with my kid. We don't have kids, but when we do, I want to play D&D with them.
We're going to have them just so we can have enough for a campaign.
So I can have a consistent weekly game. Okay,
so Todd asks, people like to have the is a hot dog a sandwich or not debate.
Yes.
I don't know where you fall on that. But he asks, what movie is the equivalent of a hot dog in the debate of is this a horror movie or not.
I actually think you're kind of a perfect person for this.
I know,
because there's
these
just a lot
ones
of stuff
I may
you just
have
do
actually
not like.
seen. Yeah.
Do you remember like a year or so into a relationship, I was like, "Hey, have you ever seen Natural Born Killers?"
Yeah.
And we watched it together, and then you were just like so disturbed and upset about it. By it.
A peak traumatic experience in my life.
So sorry. And I think it's a brilliant film. I wouldn't put it in the category of horror film, but your experience of it was so terrifying.
Not good.
But I think I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. Thank you for still being in my life.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, so the question is like, what is horror really, right? Like, I think, okay. So this is a fun little question. There's a podcast I love a lot called The Evolution of Horror, and they had a season in which they had these random episodes. One, they reviewed Home Alone as part of their home invasion mini series.
Incredible.
And I was like, oh, that's fantastic, because it's investigating the fear of breaking and entering, the fear of somebody coming into your home, the fear of the most vulnerable person in your family being stuck by themselves, except it's just twisted to make it a comedy. It's lighthearted, nobody gets hurt, right? Except the wet bandits obviously get hurt. So much. There's so many YouTube videos out there about like how absolutely murdered that they would be by Kevin McAllister. But like, right, or like Requiem for a Dream is another movie that's on this podcast I love. Requiem for a Dream is a haunting, beautiful, like scarring, traumatic film.
I haven't seen that one.
About heroin addiction. And I think you watch that film and you are terrified and so upset by how vile the addiction to heroin is, how profoundly like heartbreaking and sorrowful it is. And you're like, is this a horror movie? Like, it's got all the hallmarks of fucking you up in the way that a horror movie would. We watched
Promising Young Woman.
Okay. And we were like, is this a horror movie? Because it's got all of the beats of a stalker serial killer film. Someone who's seeking out targets and is putting them in these like compromising situations, and then like, killing them.
Right. But I wasn't scared while we were watching it.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually have a thought on this.
Yes.
Okay, so this relates back to our number one favorite TV show of all time.
Yeah.
Blind Spot.
Blind Spot.
So we're working our way through Blind Spot right now.
Love it so much.
Blind Spot is a like super violent show. Every single episode there's a shootout where lots of people die.
Yep.
A shootout or a punch out. Or sometimes there's one where they even had swords. There's a lot of
yes,
violence.
That's right.
There's a lot of violence.
Yeah. You can at least in the early season, you can typically know the episode's about to be end because they're about doing 10 minutes of shooties.
We love it. and there was an episode we watched recently where Jane was fighting her other persona, Remy, inside her own brain.
It's so fun.
And it was in that episode that I got really freaked out. And I was like, I can't watch this. This turned into a horror movie.
Oh, because of all like the color? Like, was it like black
and
red?
Do you remember that? And I was like, tell me when it's over.
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay. And I can't totally put my finger on what happened, but what it felt like was the creative tone went from wanting me, the audience, to know that everything's probably going to be okay, to me, the audience, wanting me to feel intensely uneasy and like something terrible could happen at any minute. And like they did that with, the like low hum, and they had one character's eyes start melting. Remember that? And I don't know what the cinematic tricks are that make you feel like something horrible could leap out at any second, but it switched into that. And so it just felt like they wanted me, the watcher, to have a different experience than I normally do. And that to me is like what feels like a horror movie, which is when the creator wants me to feel afraid.
Yeah.
And that's like a very palpable sensation for me because I'm get so afraid so quickly.
This is such an interesting like perspective. How much of that experience do you think had to do with the destabilizing nature of like, oh, I expected this to be action, and suddenly it's a different tone?
Well, yes, totally. Because it's like we'd watched 80 episodes at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because we love Blind Spot.
we love it so much. And then all of a sudden there's this huge tonal shift where for the whole series, I've been feeling like I know that all the characters are going to be fine. And even in that moment, I knew that the characters were going to be fine because I was like, we're still in an episode of Blind Spot. But they start using these like cinematic tricks that make me feel so uneasy.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. Speaking of another thing we randomly ingested recently in our life that I think speaks to this conversation, and we talk about this a lot because Antonia doesn't like horror movies. She's made it avidly clear. Check out any synopsis of this
Check
show.
out any episode.
She lets you all know that we all have a problem for watching horror movies.
Yeah.
But
Look.
you love a grisly, gnarly, fucked up documentary.
Yes.
A podcast.
Yes.
A video documentary.
And I think that there's something in there. The difference between being like, look at terrible things happening, but you are not a part of them.
Yeah.
Versus this terrible thing could literally happen to you because it's about to jump out and scare you right now.
Yeah, interesting.
Like
how you physically feel in the moment.
Exactly.
You feel like you could be attacked.
Exactly.
It's interesting how that's achieved in horror movies. How you're put in the almost like in the mindset of the protagonist, so you're kind of feeling what they're feeling.
Yes, and there's like an Ed Gein show, and I had listened to Monster. I'd listened to like a bunch of podcasts about him, so I was like, oh hell yeah, here we go. Like grisly, this guy's fucked up. I watched 2 minutes of it, and I was like, oh no, they're making this actually scary, and I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
So like that's where like the subject matter can be done in so many different genres.
It's so fascinating because like it seems like you would be the perfect audience for that Ed Gein show, and yet they've made it so scary you can't watch it.
Yeah.
Conversely speaking, we just watched the Netflix Puff Daddy documentary called The Reckoning.
Right.
That was so upsetting.
Yes.
It was so hard to watch. I mean, to me, it was worse, like scarier than a horror movie.
Really?
Yeah, because it was just like I can't shake it. I keep thinking about it. It makes me so upset and so like mad. Just feel like vile, you know. But like maybe it's because I felt really empathetic to so many people that were victimized, you know. But you're not gonna say like this documentary is a horror film. Right, like the documentary itself is in a genre of its own, but yet a piece of fiction that's made on actual documentary stuff, like the Ed Gein story, is suddenly too scary.
This might be controversial, but I like deeply believe that the idea of jump scares is like somewhere like on the line between what makes something horror or not horror. If there are jump scares, I think it becomes horror immediately.
Oh, okay. Listeners, write in. What are your feelings about jump scares?
Yeah.
You know, Todd, great question.
Great question. Should we wrap it up there, or is there one more question for this episode?
Yeah, let's just hit one more.
Perfect. Okay,
I'm
really excited for this one.
Yeah.
Okay, this comes from our neighbor Marguerite, who is the godfather of our dog Moisha.
I think it's Dogfather.
Dogfather. Moisha has kidnapped Moisha at this very moment.
AKA Uncle Marg.
Uncle Marg. Okay.
Okay, what did Marg
Okay, Marg says, I would love for you to try and explain how bread is made.
This is offensive.
What is yeast?
This is, honestly, this is punishing. I don't deserve this kind of treatment. All right, how do you want to know how bread's made? I'll tell you how bread's made.
Give it to us.
There's flour. There's salt and water.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeast. And sodas. Whip that up. Whip it up in a bowl. You could throw butter in there. You could throw some eggs in there. Like all of that. Just toss all that shit in. and what you do then is you put it in a like a tall pan, or like imagine a pan but it's squished, so it's more like a bucket, like a loaf pan.
Yeah.
This is so rude. So rude for a task. So you put all of that in a loaf pan,
Yep.
and you put it in the oven, and then what you do is, like you leave the house and you never come back. That's how bread is made.
You burn
And
it down.
that's how you make bread,
That's
folks.
good.
Every loaf of bread you've ever had, it had someone abandon the task entirely halfway through. That's how bread is made. It's magic, and it's a cult.
It's impossible.
It's a dark art. What is yeast? Yeah. It's a bacteria.
Nope. But it is a microbe.
That's the same thing. Okay.
It's sort of a rectangle square situation.
They're all
under the
shapes
umbrella of
microorganisms. Okay, microorganisms. Okay,
Yep.
so I was right. So yeast is a microorganism. I just said it in a different way. So yeast is like, they're like little pellets. You can get them at a store, and they are, what is yeast? Well, things need to eat yeast, and then like things eat yeast, and then the yeast eats sugar, poops out gas, because we're making kombucha right now, and so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
The yeast eats the sugar, it poops out gas, and then you trap the gas, and that's how you make it carbonated. Now, the real question is, that's how it works in kombucha. What does that have to do with bread? You might be wondering. Me too. I'm not sure that yeast. You know what? I don't think yeast is necessary for bread. Actually, I don't see how it would be needed. So this question is kind of. You know what? This question is irrelevant. Is the point?
It's a good point.
I will not be making any bread. I instantly have a lot more sympathy for our friend who got into sourdough bread.
Yeah, you talked so much shit about him.
I really did. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Nailed it.
Thank you. So, wow, a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. Well, folks, first of all,
Give it up for me.
Let's give it up for Antonia. Let's give it up for Dabuski. Antonia Lassar. Antonia Lassar, where can people find your work?
Look, you can just Google my name. I'm the only one, Antonia Lassar. You can find me on all the social medias at Antonia Lassar.
Lassar.
Isn't that cute?
Woo.
Or you can find my podcast, the Gossip Podcast Yenta. If you just Google Yenta Podcast, we're everywhere.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for putting up with how much you hate the genre. I love you.
I hate horror movies, but I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Wiggy,
Wiggy, wiggy,
wiggy,
wiggy, wiggy.
Jags.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Gang, thank you so much for writing in all these questions. I really appreciate just how thoughtful and how deep and how funny a lot of these questions are. We're gonna do more of these episodes. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts. Can't wait to tackle more questions in the future. This is Scary Movie and a Sandwich. I'm your host, Artem. Join us next time. And until then, stay hungry and stay scared. Love ya. Happy holidays. Happy 2026.